So hi, I am Joy Vernon, and I am the organizer for the Greater Seattle Tarot Meetup, formerly the organizer of the Denver Tarot Meetup and Denver Tarot Geeks and several other meetups through the ages. And I'm really excited to have Arlene with us today. Arlene Whiteswan is the creator of the Medieval Gothic Tarot, which is a gorgeous deck that is currently offered up on Kickstarter. And Arlene has an amazing story, and so I'm excited to share that with all of you. Arlene, I'd love it if you would start with how you got into tarot. I'd kind of be interested in learning about that, and then we can go into the slideshow and you can tell us the story of how the deck came into being. How's that sound?
I come from a really small town in Massachusetts, and back then during the summertime, these carnivals and circuses used to come and set up in the high school football field. And one year, and I used to take walks all over the place around there, and one year I was taking a walk and I saw the carnival people set up on the side of the road in a kind of a green open space. And so me and my friend, we wandered in, and there was a woman at a table with some tarot cards. I didn't know what they were. I had no idea, because back then, nobody in my world would have known what those were. So I don't know, so we kind of wandered over, and I got a glance at these things. And she showed us, and because I was in the arts, I was always, painting and drawing and stuff. I was fascinated by the images on the cards, because all I was used to was like playing cards or something, and they always sort of stuck with me. And then, because I think I was a teenager then, I was, I don't know, 14 or 15. So then when I went to college, I had a boyfriend that he just got me a tarot deck.
Oh, wow.
And it was a Rider-Waite tarot deck. And so I started playing with it, and I started to learn it, and yeah, that's how I got started.
Oh, that's
but
awesome.
Back then nobody knew how to nobody really knew tarot, like that 100th monkey thing hadn't happened. So I had to study the book. And I had to memorize all the meanings. I had to study the book, and I wasn't, so it was a lot harder at that time to learn it, especially in Massachusetts, where, it was pretty traditional back there. It wasn't until I came out to the West Coast in the 80s that I found out that this was kind of a much more commonplace thing out here than it was back in New England.
That's awesome. So would you like to go and look at the slideshow that I put together, and we can talk about that and kind of talk about the story?
If you want. So there's Empress, the Star, the Sun card, and the Magician.
So just right off the bat, and this is the main image that you have on your Kickstarter, and just the immediate effect of these cards, the black background, the black border, the gold outline, in gold lettering. I just love it. I love the back with the kind of aged look. And the fairy tale art is so wonderful, like the star card with the reflected star, and this person could be entering the water, even coming out of the water. There's so much movement, and like, where do these steps go? They go into the stars here, but it kind of looks like a cave. There's just so much movement and questions that open up in these cards. I just love them.
There's also a swan over here.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah, the stars. In the fairy tradition, the stars shine up from the underworld.
Yes. Yeah.
So anywhere that I have a sense of an underworld image, I put the stars.
That's beautiful.
And this is Mary Magdalene in her cave. And the story about Mary Magdalene is that she and two other Marys brought the Holy Grail to France. And they're in the south of France, and her reliquary is in a cave in the south of France. And there they preserve, she had hair all the way down to her feet, and they preserved the hair as the relic of Mary Magdalene.
Oh, wow.
So for me, the Golden Grail represents the bloodline, and then the other Grail is like the Holy Spirit, and then she's at the waters of life. Yeah, because it's a Holy Grail. It was a Holy Grail tarot because the Tuatha de Danaan are the ones who keep. In fact, I learned through the process of doing this that they're actually the keepers of the Grail. And it's possible the whole Grail mythos and a lot of the Arthurian legend came from the Tuatha de Danaan.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. That relates to these four emblems that are represented in the aces, right? Is that true?
Yeah. So the first thing that happened when I had the first vision for the cards, I'm sorry they didn't reproduce very well with my they look a lot better in person, but
I'm sure.
But the Grail, I was literally eating my dinner, and the table opened up, and I saw what's in that Ace of Cups card. I saw an underworld cavern, and I saw this hill, and I saw the Great Mother there, and the Holy Grail literally rose up through the middle of my table.
Wow.
And I thought, what the blood? I mean, I've had any supernatural experiences I had before were kind of in a controlled situation. This was totally spontaneous.
Right. Wow.
And then I smelled roses, I saw light, and then the Grail procession literally came through my house. They came in the front door, they disappeared at the windows.
Wow.
They walked straight through the living room. My dining room was next to the living room.
Wow.
So that first card is the vision that I saw, and it has the head of Bran on it, and the Holy Spirit and the Great Mother. And then the spear is the spear of Lu, or it could be the spear of Longinus, and there's the hawthorn bushes around the water, because the fairy realm is very connected to fire on water.
Yes.
Yeah, and that so that's the hawthorn hedge there, which is sacred to the fairy. And then the third one is the shield of Sir Gawain. And one of my favorite things in all of literature is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Yeah, I love it.
So I had to put him in there, and that's the girdle of Lady Bertilac on the shield, and of course the shield has the pentagram on the front and has the Virgin Mary Madonna on the back.
Oh.
He's getting protection from both levels. Because the thing that fascinates me about the whole Arthurian mythos is that it's right in between paganism and Christianity. It grew kind of right in the middle. I love sort of liminal things. I love threshold things. And it kind of grew up where both of them were going on. And Sir Gawain and the Green Knight kind of really encompasses all of that, because you have Christianity and you have paganism together. And that's how it was for a long time. In fact, I was raised Roman Catholic, and we, there is it's all in there. It's all in there because it all was included.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, all the witch craze didn't really happen until the Reformation, where there was a clash between, Protestantism and Christianity, and people got caught in the middle, I think. So the fourth one is Excalibur, where the Lady of the Lake was King Arthur. He became the king at 12 years old, and a lot of people forget that. They want to show this manly brute, and the King Arthur, but he actually was a kid. So he was quite young, and he goes to the lake and he sees this sword rise out of the lake being held in the hand of the Lady of the Lake. And I always thought that was an extremely powerful image.
And she comes up, the Lady of the Lake comes up in some other cards, doesn't she?
Well, she's the high priestess. Yeah, she's kind of the ladies. There are ladies of the lake, I guess I would say.
Oh, okay.
Because there's the lady of this Lady of the Lake. There's a Lady of the Lake that brings the Holy Grail into Camelot during Pentecost, and then there's the Lady of the Lake Nimue, who Merlin taught all his secrets to.
Okay.
They're basically a class of fairies.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I did not realize that. Let's go on and take a look at some of the majors, because you said the priestess was one of the ladies of the lake. So let's take a look at her and some of these other characters that we have.
Now you're seeing the ones that were not formatted by the graphic designer I was working with. So the first one is the Fool, and that's Parsifal, or Percival. And his story is he grew up in the woods with his mother. His dad was gone. And one day he sees the Knights of the Round Table going through the forest, and the sunlight was shining on their armor, and he thought they were angels. So he's a child, basically, and a kid, and he decides he's going to follow them. He's going to become one of them. And, there is an element with because of Wolfram von Eschenbach in Germany making the Parsifal book, there's a lot of, and also maybe Mallory, there's a lot of Freemasonry also threaded through this stuff. So you have the black and white checker bag, and you have the black and white magpies. The magpies are insanely curious, so they're a good little. They're the ones leading him on. The dog is trying to hold him back.
Oh, nice.
And the angel is praying for it.
I love it. That's perfect.
Yeah, and the yellow is like the Mercury color. It's kind of, he wants to have enlightenment. He's got butterflies on the front of his thing as well, because he's being a little flighty, but he's also a transformational figure, because he's the one who we follow throughout this journey, and he transforms.
So you're pulling, even though this is more of a kind of a story deck based on the Arthurian romance, you're pulling a lot of regular standard tarot symbolism into this.
And the symbolism from that the Tuatha de Danaan put in front of me.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Right.
Because these all came from them, and also certain subconsciously, I suppose, things I knew from a lifetime of reading Arthurian material, because I started reading these when I was a kid, and I always sensed that there was a deep symbol system involved in there. Like, I felt like some of the images were codes, and and when I was in college, I had an English degree, and I focused a lot. I read everything that was Arthurian. I read all the Robert de Boron. I read, of course, the Mallory. I read all of it. The elucidation figure's very big in this scenario, which is another lesson in a way. Yeah.
So let's talk about, I'm interested in your artistic process, and the way you just described it now, and I think how you mention it on your Kickstarter, is that you say that the Tuatha de Danaan place the image before you. So can you talk to us more about that?
So once I started drawing, I did the pages first, the maidens, because that's who came through my house. So I just, based on what I saw, I made those cards.
Here's some of the court cards.
The first one was the Maiden of Spears. That was the first figure that came into the house.
Wow.
She kind of lit the whole place up, and there were candle bearers as well. There was a lot of them. So I started with those, and so once I was in the groove, kind of, and I had, like I said, I also had a lot of knowledge about this material in the back of my head.
Sure.
I would just get either a picture in my head or an idea, but eventually there started to be three-dimensional visions in my house. They were like doorways. I could go in mentally. I could go in and I could experience things about the symbol system and what they were representing. I suppose some people might have been scared, but I wasn't scared. I was just intrigued.
That's wonderful.
And they just open up, and I'd be okay. I'd draw that. Because I started out with all the drawings, and then I painted them. And I had different drawings. Some of them showed different versions. So I ended up painting actually more than, I've had 3 different backsides on the thing. So there were more paintings than just the 78 cards. But these court cards, I always love the court cards. I don't know why, I just like the kind of characters, I guess.
Yeah, it introduces all the characters in the story.
Yeah. So the Igraine and Uther Pendragon are the parents of King Arthur.
So there are Queen and King of Spears here in this image, right?
Yes. Yeah. And the White Horse of Sovereignty of Britain is on there. And of course, they were in Cornwall, and it's Tintagel Castle, and that's where I went. And there was a comet when Arthur was born. And then when I was down there in Cornwall, I saw the Hale-Bopp comet over the English Channel. It was amazing. I thought, oh my God, this is too much synchronicity for me.
Oh my God.
And then, of course, comets can often herald the death of a monarch, and then Princess Diana was killed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no coincidence there, I suppose. And then the knight is Merlin, because Merlin, he was the catalyst. He arranged the liaison between Igraine and Uther Pendragon so that Arthur would be born. Big engineering. And he's got the dragon, the red and white dragon on his stole.
Arthur's life outlined on her cloak.
Yeah, because she's pregnant with Arthur there, and she's sitting in the rose hedge. And yeah, that's Arthur's life on her cloak.
That's incredible. There's so much detail in these. Well, let's talk about your devil card, because it's the Green Knight, and I also love the Green Knight. So let's take a look at him.
So I thought, what better devil, because he tests, well, yeah, do you want me to go through the story? Do people know the story of Gawain and the Green Knight?
Sure, if you can do like an abbreviated version of it, that would be wonderful.
So at Christmas time, King Arthur's having his banquet, and actually there's an old lady at the banquet that that I learned later on was actually Morgan Le Fay. So she's kind of the orchestrator of this whole thing.
Okay.
This is a really early poem. It was translated by J.R.R. Tolkien, which,
yeah,
you know.
I've got that.
So they're having a banquet, and this giant green horse with the Green Knight crashes into the banquet, and he's like a giant, and he demands that someone play a game with him, and he's got this hatchet. And he challenges King Arthur, but Sir Gawain is Arthur's kind of champion, and he says, "No, I will do the deed." And he goes, and the Green Knight tells him to chop his head off. So, of course, you know, they all know there's more to this than meets the eye, but Gawain goes ahead and he chops off the Green Knight's head, and the Green Knight picks his head up and he laughs and he holds it up and he runs kind of like the headless horseman, and he runs out of the place saying, "Now you have to meet me a year from now at the Green Chapel, and I will do the same to you." So Gawain goes through all these rituals. You know, it's getting to be Christmas time, New Year's time, and I think it's New Year's he has to go there. He goes through all these rituals and everything, and he gets the shield, and Gawain's strength waxes and wanes with the sun. With the sun. So when the sun is early in the morning, he's weak, and then at noon he's really strong, and then his strength wanes. So he's a solar kind of figure.
Interesting. But
now he has to go at night. So I put him with the full moon because I figure he doesn't have any strength at all at night. But I'll give him the full moon at least. But he goes to the Green Chapel to meet the Green Knight, and the Green Knight's standing there with a hatchet. He comes to the castle of Sir Bertilac and to stay till this ritual is supposed to take place. And he's tested, like Sir Bertilac is a hunter, and he brings in the game, and he says to Sir Gawain, "I'll give you whatever I get on my hunt if you tell me what went on in the castle today." And the castle, Sir Bertilac's wife is this gorgeous, sexy, siren-type woman. It's actually Morgan Le Fay in another disguise. And she does everything she can to seduce Sir Gawain, and because he's the noble knight, he does not succumb to her seductions. And he has to report to Sir Bertilac what happened in the castle that day, and he tells the truth. And you know, he gets the game, and then the next day, and at one point, she gives him this green girdle, and she says, "This will protect you in the beheading game." But he can't tell about the girdle because it's supposed to be a secret. So he doesn't tell when he reports everything except for that. So when he goes to the Green Chapel and he puts his head on the thing, thinking, "Oh my God!" Well, the Green Knight brings down the hatchet and just grazes his cheek. He said, "Well, that's because you lied to me about the girdle." And he basically he wins because of his morality and his honesty and the Green Knight's a devil because he can wield death,
right?
But he tests your morality, and he sees how corruptible you are or not. And so I thought he was a good figure for the devil. And then to see the stars are in the sky and in the underworld, and there's a green man there that always, you know, is the new life, the resurrection. Because the Green Knight is obviously kind of a vegetation figure.
Right.
Or a dead, you know, because I guess corpses turn green. I don't know.
Well, I love it. I love it. So what other cards do you want to talk about?
Well, the Hanged Man there is from an old folk ballad. Down in yon forest there stands a hall. And he's the wounded king. And he has a never healing wound. He's a Fisher King, but he has different versions as well. And this one is the wounded king in the oak grove. He's more like the Grail King.
Oh, fascinating.
And the weaving goddess is trying to hold his life together by weaving.
Okay.
The dead trees underneath and the leafless trees is the wasteland, because he can't, as long as he can't heal, there's a wasteland.
Yeah, I love all those falling leaves in the background of the card.
Yeah, thank you. And then there's the head of Bran in the heal. That's supposed to be a healing spring, which is why he's there.
Oh, okay.
So, or it could be Christ. I mean, that's the thing with the Arthurian material, is that it's both. The symbol systems work in both, for both, I guess you could say. So they can be interpreted either way.
I'm really interested in one of the things that I was going to ask is, I believe that you have a book that goes with this. Is that correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Are you working on that?
I wrote the book 20 years ago.
Oh, how interesting.
I mean, this is a 20-year-old project.
And so you, in the book, of course, you explain all the stories and also the symbols that are in the cards. Is that right?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Let's see what else we have here. Do you want to talk about the Lovers?
The Lovers is again Sir Gawain and the story of Dame Ragnall. So the story goes that the loathly lady, this is the figure in black, is this, I paint her exactly as it's described in Mallory. She had the tusks of a boar, and she was considered horrifically ugly. And she said she needs to be married, you know, so one of Arthur's knights needs to marry her. And of course, Sir Gawain steps up. He says, "Okay, I'll marry you." And so she said, and then she turns into the beautiful lady.
And that's shown in the reflection of the pool there.
Yeah, because in the Lovers you have a choice, right?
Yeah.
And the choice she gives him is, I can be beautiful by day and ugly by night, or ugly by day and beautiful by night. Which would you prefer? And he said, "Oh, I just leave it up to you." And then she's beautiful all the time because he gave her her sovereignty. But in terms of the Lover's card, you know, you never know. You could be with the most amazing person and they turn out to be horrible, right?
Yeah.
Or you could be with someone you think is less of a whatever, and they turn out to be super great for you, right?
Yeah. It's wonderful. Really, just really beautiful imagery, and I love how you work the story in so clearly. Just a wonderful facility with the symbolism of the story.
Oh, thank you.
Here's the other court cards. I want to kind of jump ahead to some of the minors because this is a scenic deck, a fully illustrated scenic deck. Here's the tens, which tell the story of Arthur sailing to Avalon is one that I frequently talk about with tarot. I usually use it with the 6, but it's probably more appropriate with the 10. So would you like to maybe talk about that one?
Well, in the Battle of Camlan, because the swords is all about King Arthur.
Okay.
So in the Battle of Camlan, he confronts his son, who he had with Morgause, his sister. That was orchestrated by Morgan Le Fay. So Mordred, he ends up in a battle with Mordred, and they both fall. So Arthur is mortally wounded, and these 3 queens come in a black boat, pick him up. And again, the center one is Morgan Le Fay. And so it's the 10 of Swords because it's the end, virtually the end of Camelot. And he's taken, and he's taken to Avalon, which is Glastonbury. Glastonbury, where Glastonbury Tor is used to be marshlands all around there. It's been drained, be farmland. But it used to all be marshlands, so they're taking him to Glastonbury Tor. And there he's buried, and they say, you know, if Britain's ever in danger, King Arthur will rise again. It's kind of like the head of Bran, which he tore out of the White Mountain, which is where the Tower of London is. No, we don't need this to protect Britain anymore. I can do it. And then, of course, when he dies, they put him under Glastonbury Tor. He's supposedly there now. He's sleeping.
Okay. This is the 2 of Wands, and was this the one that was Tristan and Isolde?
All the 2s are Tristan and Isolde.
Right.
It's another one of my favorite things of all time.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And this 9 of Pentacles over here, like really beautiful image. Just love these. This is tell us about the 6 of Pentacles. I love your interpretation there. It's a little bit of if I understand correctly from what you said on Instagram, I think I got the impression of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of thing. Is that?
Kind of, yeah. So it's Sir Gawain in the Green Knight, and he's being seduced by her, but because he played his cards right, she gives him the girdle. And then he has to tell Sir Bertilac everything that happened, but he's hiding the girdle behind his back on the bottom. So the give and take, So there's the give and take of the whole thing. But sometimes with a give and take, there can be a little, hook, right? And the stained glass window shows the Green Knight beheading Sir Gawain.
And who is that above in the top portion of the window?
The dark side of Morgan Le Fay.
Oh, okay.
And there are green men around the window, and the pentacles all happen in the winter as well. So there's just it's not a straightforward generosity card, I guess.
And I wanted, just before we end the slideshow, I love your artwork so much. I had to include some of the other things that you had done.
Oh, thank you. That's called House of Night. It came from a dream.
Oh my God, it's so gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. That's Pathway to the Low Hills. That's sort of a constant image with me about the low hills and the moon and
It's beautiful. I've got another one, but I had to include Lockdown in Blue.
Yeah, that was my COVID painting.
I have a black cat with a white spot in the front too, so I was just like, oh, this is perfect.
The cats always dominate, don't they? It's like the first thing you see is that cat.
They really do. But so much detail in the drapes and in the whole environment. I just love it. Love it.
Oh, thank you.
And here's the other Crow Hill series.
Yeah. That's called Goldenrod, and that's in Massachusetts. I grew up near a place. It was behind my grandparents' house called Crow Hill. And at that time, now it's all grown up, covered with trees. But at that time, it was kind of like this. It was kind of rough. There were back in New England, you have the residue of ancient farms, like a lot of these little stone walls. You even find like irises and tiger lilies and sort of garden flowers in these places, in the woods and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So goldenrod is a powerful plant that grows everywhere. It's a weed. I'm kind of fascinated with these kind of weeds. I guess it's kind of a witchy thing, but I'm just fascinated with the strength of them and that they're unappreciated really in a lot of ways. They're very beautiful in their way.
It's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And the fireflies. I just loved her hair. I love her hair. And the fireflies are so beautiful.
Thank you. Well, that's kind of, that was me in England when I went there in 97.
Nice. Gorgeous. Well, thank you so much, Arlene. Anybody have any questions for Arlene?
Have you thought about revisiting any of the images, or like if have you used them over the years, and have you found things out about them that you didn't know when you began?
In some respects, kind of in the middle of this process, in 1998, I moved to the UK. So when I was there, I was still painting, and being there, which has so many more levels of history and so much more, because I was right in where the stuff was, because I'd been in 97. I went for a month on I call my King Arthur tour, and I went to all these places. And in France as well. And in England, the energies were different, and they affected some of the imagery of the cards. So some of the cards got a lot darker, but I still had the first images. So that's why I had 2 temperance cards, 2 different tower cards. I had, only those 2, but I see different things in the imagery now that I didn't used to see, and that's a really deep subject.
My question is, so I'm not familiar with the King Arthur stories. I'm really familiar with, the traditional like Rider-Waite. So if I were to use your deck, do I have to sort of study those stories first, or can I like what is your?
No, I designed it to be for readers. You can, if you want to, what I would have in the book would probably be enough. But I also think intuitively you could pick up on what's happening in those cards, just knowing what you would know from the Rider-Waite system.
I think I would say, in terms of having kind of looked over a lot of these carefully as I was, preparing for the meetup and just kind of checking her out and studying in general, I would say that again, one of my things, I love decks that are fairy tale art. Certain publishers have been like pulling from Golden Age of Illustration lately, and those are so easy to read because even if you don't know the story itself, they're actually illustrating a story as opposed to trying to compile symbols. And and that's what I see in these cards, is that even if you don't know the whole Gawain, like with that Six of Pentacles, Gawain and Morgana and Bertilac and all. If you don't know who any of those people are, you can see that he's talking to a woman, and then he goes and talks to a man. And if you look closely, you do see that he's hiding something behind his back. And that in and of itself tells a story, even if you don't know any of the details or the characters.
Yeah.
So just my 2 cents on that, but I think this kind of imagery is really easy to read.
And I think for me, I'm just looking at like and the devil was a really interesting thing, and my thought was like, so someone's going to sit down and ask, is Johnny going to leave his wife?
Right.
And I'm not going to be able to tell them, well, here's an Arthurian tale like that.
Right.
So I'm trying to see because typically we see the devil as this card of like ties to the world that you don't kind of really like, unnecessary ties and like that. And so it would be harder for me to pull that out, not knowing that story. Knowing the story now, it's a bit more easy to kind of pull that imagery.
Yeah. Yeah, it isn't. Some of them are like the Hangman too. It's not that straightforward.
But they're fascinating. Like I love them. I'm just saying. But I would never say it's like a beginner deck.
Well, see, I wouldn't think of it as a beginner deck, but I would think that if I wanted to know if Johnny was going to leave his wife, I wouldn't rely on the devil card for that personally.
But if the devil card came up in Arlene's deck, I mean, Johnny didn't have an attempt to leave because his head's gone. I mean, she took care of that real quick. So I mean, that answers that question. Johnny is not leaving because she already took care of Johnny. So
right. It's more of a Lorena Bobbitt.
What's your next question?
It would help to know the story, but that would be all in the book. If, like, for instance, not just allergic to Crowley, but if the Toth deck doesn't read well for me because I don't resonate. I like the artwork. I don't resonate with a lot of the symbol systems in there, which So I think there's some decks that maybe require a slight learning curve. I don't know. Even if these images I have are not straightforwardly right or way, they're still in the ballpark, and you can use your intuition to look into the story and interpret the vibration or how it applies to the person you're reading for.
Did you paint these in acrylic? What kind of a medium did you use? Were they like
acrylic,
on canvas? Yeah. Okay.
They're on an illustration board.
Okay, yeah. Fabulous use of color. And I'm assuming that in real life, like all the gold is actually like gilt. Like it's like real shiny.
It's gold in acrylic gold paint. Well, I'll tell you, it not only took years, but when you start working with a tarot deck, shit happens. I mean, crazy stuff can start happening in your life. You got to be, I found, the Grail, there's the bright Grail, and it's like the moon. And then with the Celtic as well, there's the bright side and there's the dark side. And that dark side will come after you if you're not, it can happen.
I also want to take a moment right now for Arlene, for you to share your website and your Instagram, and where's the best place for people to follow you if they want to follow future iterations of the deck.
Arlene Whiteswan is my spiritual name, and it's the name that always brought me tremendous good luck. So now I have Whiteswan Arts on Instagram. So there's the Mysterious Domain. You can find my artwork.
Okay.
And there's a link if you want to buy anything. There's a link you can go.
Thank you so much, Arlene. This has been fabulous.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed learning all about this deck.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you too. It was fun.